Hi, welcome to Daily Dose of Anime Recaps. In this video, we'll be taking a look at episodes 9 through 12 of the series Dragon Quest Dino Daibuken. In a fantasy world where humans and monsters live vastly segregated lives, the Dark King Viren and his Dark Lord Hadler have propagated a resurgence of evil dark monsters who wage war against the humans. Our tiny hero Dai, raised by monsters and mourning the loss of his sensei, the hero Ivan, strives for vengeance with his fellow students Pop and Mam. The teammates seek to defend King Romos from the monsters after an attack by the Beast King Crocodile. Though Dai and Mam are incapacitated in the fight, will Pop be able to save his friends from certain death? Or is he just the cowardly boy he seems to be? Find out what happens in this recap episode. Though before we get into it, make sure to subscribe to our channel and click the bell icon so you never miss an episode from us. Episode 9 begins with a tense altercation between Dai and Crocodile, with Dai and Mam being knocked out by the Beast King Anguish Blast. Pop hears the blast and says he doesn't care what happens. Then a mage from the band of fake heroes appears and mocks Pop for his heroism, despite inviting him to join their party. The fake mage shows Pop a glass prophecy of Mam and Dai being beaten by Crocodile, and he cries seeing his crush Mam in such a state. Pop then runs towards the battle, weirdly being inspired by the fake hero, who seems more benevolent than he first appeared. He confronts Crocodile with more courage and bravery than we've ever seen him display, and, remembering Ivan's sacrifice, promises to never abandon his friends ever again. Crocodile condemns him to death and forbids Brass, Dai's enchanted grandfather, from interfering. Crocodile's attacks are physical and brutal, and we realize that one blow from the Beast King will kill Pop. Pop casts Kafriz. Though Pop repels it with his vortex axe, Crocodile slams his tail into Pop's stomach, and we think the young mage is seriously injured. He sees Dai passed out on the floor and is inspired by his strength. Pop's staff breaks, and in a moment of madness, he begins to flick the broken gems towards Brass. We realize what he is doing, casting a magic circle around Brass. Dai's grandfather is freed from the evil enchantment, and suddenly Pop has a teammate in the fight. Brass can't leave the magic circle, though Crocodile can't enter, protecting Brass. Pop is entirely spent, having spent the last of his magic on Glimmer to free base. Pop, thinking he's about to die, remembers Ivan's teaching to use their training to help other people. Just before Crocodile is about to kill Pop, Gome bumps into Dai, and the golden slime's tears wake up the tiny hero. Just as he is about to swing his axe, a blue shining light surrounds Crocodile. Dai, with the power of the Dragon Quest, is awakened and ready to fight now that Brass is freed from evil. Dai catches and destroys Crocodile's axe, then throws the Beast King against the wall. Crocodile, channeling pure anger, prepares to cast Beast King Anguish Blast. Mam heals Pop, who throws a sword at Dai so that he can use the Ivan Strash to annihilate Crocodile. The attack destroys Crocodile, who stumbles out of the castle, revealing his happiness being defeated at the hands of Pop, who showed incredible pride and bravery. This closes the 9th episode, which ends Crocodile's attack on the castle. A rare episode of Dragon Quest to not end on a cliffhanger. This episode instead kicks off Pop's inspiring character arc of bravery. The 10th episode begins with the king giving Dai the title of hero, though he rejects it because he says he couldn't have won on his own. The king gives the heroes a set of gifts and tells them to wear the gifts when the people see them. The people of Romos are excited to see the heroes who saved them, and even the fake heroes are happy to see them win. Dai, Pop, and Mam are clad in new outfits and armor, looking very impressive to the people of Romos. Meanwhile, in the Dark Lord's lair, a mysterious voice gives Hadler Kaziz, the most powerful heat spell, and a new body. He commands Zaboera to summon the remaining Legion commanders to Sovereign Rock Castle, and it's likely that another attack is being prepared. On a boat, Dai, Pop, and Mam are sailing to Papnica to see Dai's beloved princess, Leona, and Pop mocks him for this. We find out from the ship captain that the siege at Papnica is brutal and intense, and the continent of Holkia is the home of the Legion of Immortals, the Undead. Meanwhile, we are introduced to the country of Orzam and the evil Blizzblade Legion commander, Blizzblade General Flazard. he receives a message to return to Sovereign Rock Castle before telling his monsters to utterly annihilate the remaining humans on Orzam. Flazard arrives in Sovereign Rock Castle and meets Saboera, who warns him of Dai. We also find out that Crocodile survived and has been placed in resurrection fluid. Then, we are introduced to the Dragon Legion commander, Dragon Master General Baran. We find out that he has already crushed Ringea, the Fortress Kingdom, in just a few days. We then meet another commander, Mistvirn, who appears out of thin air. Hadler then reveals that the final commander, Hyunkel, has been sent to slay Dai. Meanwhile, Dai arrives in Papnica and finds a city ravaged by war and destruction. From out of the ground, the Immortal Legion appears and Dai prepares to fight. Outnumbered, they are about to attack, until a flash from the air destroys the skeletons. The disciples of Yvonne recognize another student of Yvonne who uses Yvonne's Earth Slash. We find out that the mysterious man was Yvonne's first student, and there's a strange eeriness in the air. Pop doesn't trust him, but Dai hastily asks about Leona, though the stranger doesn't know nor reveal his name. At the Sovereign Rock Castle, Flazard exclaims his contempt for the human Hyunkel, though Hadler reveals that Dai could never defeat Hyunkel. Then, back in Papnica, Pop reveals his suspicion of the stranger. Dai asks him to join their fight, and the stranger starts laughing maniacally and calling the heroes fools. He summons the Undead Legion and sets them onto the heroes. He reveals that not all students of Yvonne love justice, and that some of them have embraced evil. Then, without much surprise, we find out that he is Hyunkel, the final commander of Hadler's army. Hyunkel mocks Yvonne's death and says he should have focused on his own training rather than his students. Dai, angered by the disrespect, begins a flurry of attacks against the evil Legion commander. His attacks didn't land a single blow on Hyunkel, who even blocks the powerful Yvonne Strash. The 9th episode ends with a strange mystery. How did a student of Yvonne become so evil that he would join Hadler, the Dark Lord? Is Yvonne's legacy not as powerful as it seems? And how is Hyunkel so powerful that he could block Dai in Yvonne's most powerful move? Hyunkel mocks Dai, who failed to learn Air Slash as their training finished only after 3 days, though not even the Legion commander can use that kind of attack. Regardless, he throws a powerful Yvonne Strash against Dai, and it shatters his shield. Hyunkel then uses a powerful dark magic ability, Amdo, which turns his dark armor blade into a giant suit of armor that fully encases his body. It is both the ultimate weapon and armor. Pop is quickly defeated, though Mam stands up to Hyunkel, who rudely suggests he wouldn't fight a woman. We then find out why Hyunkel hates Yvonne so much, because Yvonne killed his father. We find out that Hyunkel was raised by a Hell Knight in Hadler's underground palace after being orphaned as a baby by Hadler's war regime. Yvonne appears and the Hell Knight Bardos needs to fulfill his duty to the Dark Lord and fight. After Hadler is killed, Hyunkel's father's body dissolves into dust as he was an undead soldier. Without the dark energy to sustain him, he loses all his power and crumbles to ash. Hyunkel was then found by Yvonne and swore to learn to fight from him so he could one day kill him. Hyunkel then uses a powerful magic spell designed to defeat Yvonne's sword style, Bloody Scryed. In a flashback, we see Yvonne give Hyunkel the insignia of Yvonne, and Hyunkel then reveals that his malice was formed from a hatred of Yvonne in response to the death of his father. After attacking Yvonne, Hyunkel was rescued by Mistvirn. Hyunkel reveals that his attack is far stronger than Yvonne's most powerful Yvonne Strash attack. Mam attempts to attack using Dazzle, however he quickly disposes Mam. Meanwhile, Dai prepares to attack the opening in Hyunkel's armor. His attacks are basically useless, and Hyunkel attacks him with brutality. Dai is essentially quite weak without using the red crest, though Pops reminds him of it. Hyunkel then casts an evil spell that uses dark aura to turn people into puppets. Dai, completely immobile and incapacitated, can't defend himself. Just as he casts his Bloody Scryed, Crocodile appears and intercepts the attack. He commands Pop to leave on a monster's back, and we find out that Crocodile has completely reformed and become good. Just then, Hyunkel attacks Crocodile further, and beast blood splashes everywhere. Crocodile is clearly injured and incapable of fighting fully. A monster, under Crocodile's commands, whisks Pop and Dai away to safety. Crocodile reveals he fought out of hatred for humans before being reformed by Dai, Pop, and Mam's resolve. He attempts to turn Hyunkul and refute his hatred for humans and even sheds a tear for Dai. Hyunkul stabs his sword deep into Crocodile, and the Beast King is severely injured. Hyunkul tells Marug, a strange monster, to tend to Crocodile and keeps Mam as a hostage. Pop and Dai are deep in a hole when a strange man appears to their rescue, but that spells the end of another episode. Another cliffhanger, and the suspense continues. This time, Dai and Pop are separated from Mam, and Crocodile's fate is once again thrown into question. What will happen in the next episode? Can Dai and Pop escape the giant hole they've been dropped into? And who is this strange man who just appeared? Will he save them, or will he be evil like Hyunkul? Hopefully, we'll find out in the next episode. In the 12th episode, Marug takes her down into the middle of a volcano, and Hadler is arriving soon. Meanwhile, Pop and Dai find out that the man who saved them is one of Princess Leona's swordsmen, Baduk. Dai demands to find out if Princess Leona is safe, and Baduk reveals that Leona's battle plan is to wait for Dai so they can fight back. Now he's here, they can fight back. But first, they need to rescue Mam. We find out that Baduk was separated from everyone in the battle. Though Leona is safe and protected by the 3 strongest mages in the army, Pop and Dai are resting, recuperating energy for the fight. When Pop asks him why he didn't use the power of the Dragon Crest, Pop reveals that he sympathized with Hyunkul, as they were both raised by monsters. Meanwhile, Hadler and his legions have arrived in Papnica, and Zabuera criticizes Hyunkul for not defeating Dai. Hadler also questions Hyunkul about Crocodile, and Hyunkul lies and pretends to know nothing of it. We find out that Hyunkul has no love for Hadler, as he thinks that had the Dark Lord been stronger then, his father would still be alive. Meanwhile, Baduk gives Dai his old chainmail armor, while Pop is missing. Dai is confused as Pop never wakes up before him. They find him training in the forest, binding new spells. Pop resolves that they can't beat Hyunkul without magic, but Dai reminds him that spells don't work on his armor. Pop's plan is to use weather-based magic against Hyunkul and use electricity to zap him. However, neither Pop or Dai can actually use spells that magic. Their plan is for both of them to use their spells and combine them so it's powerful enough to hurt Hyunkul. Meanwhile, the Undead Legion commander goes into Mam's spell to speak to her, and they talk about Hyunkul losing his father. Then Mam starts crying, and Hyunkul hits her, which is completely against his code. Meanwhile, Dai and Pop are still training, though their accuracy with the electric bolt is only slightly improving. Eventually, they become consistent with the accuracy, and they think they can go rescue Mam now. They find the volcano that Mam is hidden in and theorize that Crocodile must have been killed. They enter, and the undead legions gather to fight against them. Mam overhears the soldiers preparing and decides that she needs to escape as soon as possible. Just then, Gome flies through the door, and then Mam hatches a plan. Gome picks up Mam's weapons from the guard storeroom, and she swiftly escapes. Dai and Pop are chased by the monsters into the middle of a coliseum, and we find out that it's a trap from Hyunkul. Wearing his full armor, he prepares to fight Dai and Pop once again. This time, though, they're outside, and the two heroes can use their new teamwork magic to defeat the evil undead commander. In this fight, Hyunkul's powers seem to have grown exponentially, perhaps due to the rage ensued by his conversation with Mam. Dai and Pop are infused with a new enthusiasm, somehow dodging all of his dangerous attacks when they couldn't before. Dai jumps in with a flurry of attacks, though they do nothing to hurt Hyunkul. As he does this, Pop prepares his weather spell as Hyunkul is distracted. Meanwhile, Mam breaks into a room that has a treasure chest inside. As she opens it, she thinks it could be a legendary weapon, and the room begins to glow. In the fight between Hyunkul and Dai, Pop finally casts his half spell, and then Dai casts his half. Powerfully, they can cast the spell, and Hyunkul seems defeated as he collapses onto the floor. However, as is often the case with Dragon Quest, we end another episode with a cliffhanger. Is Hyunkul defeated, or will he survive yet another attack? We'll find out in the next couple of episodes of Dragon Quest.